What's going on, my fellow A-plusers? Welcome back once again to a brand new video. It is I, your host, as always, Adam Perez, certainly coming through as we've got a Falcon and Winter Soldier episode that we're here to go ahead and break down for you guys today. Episode number 2, titled The Star-Spangled Man, if I'm not mistaken. We got to see a little bit more of an insight in regards to our brand new Captain America and John Walker, and maybe a Captain America that a lot of us maybe we're not familiar with, guys. So we're definitely going to be breaking it all down for you guys here today. So thank you very much for certainly joining us every Friday, as always. I know we usually try and go around 7 o'clock or so Central Time, but a bit of a crazy day for me. Running errands all over the place. Got home a little bit late, so a little bit of a late start to our review, guys. But we're definitely going to go ahead and break it down for another stellar episode. It's actually kind of crazy to think that we're 1/3 of the way through this season already. We've only got 4 episodes left. I do believe it's only 6 episodes this season. But just even the fact of us having 6 episodes, I feel like they've put a lot into the very first 2 and have done some really great just character work between Sam and Bucky. We've got some really great action moments, at least one in each of these episodes. This one was actually pretty enjoyable in a sense. I still loved Sam's sort of flight, if you will, as the Falcon, as the intro for last week's episode, much better. But there was something really cool about this episode in regards to seeing Sam and Bucky sort of teaming up with the new duo of Captain America and his sidekick Battlestar, which a great sidekick name, I can't even lie. To the point to where it almost seems as though Bucky was kind of pissed off that maybe he got a cooler name than he did. I have no idea, but I thought just the action piece that we wind up getting in there was pretty cool, and get the opportunity to see our new Captain America in action. Not quite as impressive as Steve Rogers, but at least he gave it a shot. You know what I mean? And considering the fact that he was going up against some super soldiers in this episode, and I don't believe he's got super soldier abilities himself, yeah, so that would be a difficult fight for anybody, to say the least, guys. But let's go ahead and get into this episode. One that I really enjoyed. I was so glad that they gave us some insight into John Walker, right? Like, I see the memes all over the place. He did look ridiculous in his Captain America costume, or at least that shot of him that we wind up getting at the end of episode 1. That's become a meme thrown all over the place now, not quite living up to the image of Steve Rogers himself. So I am glad that we at least got a little bit of an insight. So at least let us know that he's an everyday man, right? Like, clearly a soldier, really significantly gifted soldier. 3 Medal of Honors, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was a part of counterterrorism and like hostage situations, or whatever the case may be. So he's definitely seen the battlefield. He definitely has the experience under his belt. But it is fascinating to kind of see what being a new Captain America is all about, right? The idea of not only do you have to be a hero, but yes, it also means signing autographs, talking to senators, right? Shaking hands and going on press tours, I'm sure. So it's interesting to kind of see an insight as to how the U.S. government would really want to handle sort of their own Captain America in this time. Like, I don't know how much of that Steve Rogers was really doing, or if Steve Rogers' idea of what he was the Avengers and protecting the world sort of thing. You know what I mean? I don't know if he did that type of stuff for the government at all, but who certainly knows? But I do remember the first Avenger when they had him dressing up as Captain America and doing all the dances and the songs and the plays and stuff. I guess you can kind of look at that as promotion, if you will. But I really love getting to kind of see an idea of who John Walker certainly is, and maybe why he deserved this mantle, if you will. Really cool seeing him throw around the shield. Also, that's pretty impressive. And I will say this, as I watch this episode, I do appreciate him at least trying to get familiar with Bucky and Sam, at least trying to kind of bring them into the fold a little bit. But I do feel as though maybe he's getting a little cocky by the end of this episode. And what I mean by that is, if you watch John Walker in the very beginning, nice, clean shaven guy, right? Not sure if he's ready to go ahead and pick up this mantle. And by the end of the episode, right, he's signing autographs. He's thanking himself for releasing Bucky. He's even got that 5 o'clock shadow kind of growing, a little bit more of a push back towards Sam and Bucky this time around, right? So I am wondering if he's kind of getting his Captain America swag here. If maybe the power's going to his head a little bit. I do know he in the comic books he at least turns out to start being like a psycho or some crazy person. So I don't know what kind of direction they're going to be taking him in. But he definitely feels like he's progressing very well by the end of this episode, compared to the uncertainty that he wind up having in that clean-shaven face at the beginning of the episode. So really liking what I've seen so far. And I cannot remember the actor that portrays him, but I do remember seeing him in, was it Overlord, if I'm not mistaken, one of the crazy zombie movies that they wind up having. So yeah, I do appreciate what he's certainly bringing to the role, even though he's not quite feeling it like Steve Rogers himself. Speaking of Captain America's, guys, we got to talk about the Captain America that was introduced to us here in Isaiah Bradley. Now, interesting here, consider the fact that we do have brand new super soldiers going around. Clearly somebody has a serum of their own that they're kind of putting out there. Most people, for the most part, outside of Bucky, just know of Captain America as somebody with the super serum as well, the super soldier serum. But Bucky introduces Sam in this episode to somebody else who at one particular point in time also received the super soldier serum, and that is in fact Isaiah Bradley, the Black Captain America, as he's certainly known in the comic books. I believe this was a storyline back in 2003. The title of the book was called Truth, Red, White, and Black, if I'm not mistaken, and it highlights the idea that there was a Black Captain America during the time period of Captain America himself. So apparently the story, and while I think I've only picked up the very first issue. I don't believe I read the entirety. It is in fact just a little bit of a mini series. But based off of Isaiah Bradley's story here, it actually takes place about a year after Captain America winds up getting his particular super soldier serum. The idea here is after the death of the scientist, the United States government wanted to try and recreate the serum in some particular way, and we're not very successful at it at all. And so what they decided to do was take 300 African Americans and experiment on them to see if they could get their version of the super soldier serum to certainly work. Now, this is very reminiscent to that of real life history in the Tuskegee Project, where the government did experiments on African Americans, wind up giving them syphilis also, if I'm not mistaken. So this really hits home in regards to the history of the United States and where Isaiah Bradley sort of fits into that world when it comes to Marvel Comics. So out of the 300 Black men that wind up actually surviving, I think there was only 5 left. And even during their missions, they wind up dying as well, and really leaving the only survivor to be that of Isaiah Bradley himself. And the idea here is that I believe he wanted to go ahead and take down the Nazis, who were also trying to create their own serum. And he wind up stealing Captain America's costume along with an additional shield as well, and went on and sort of saved the day. Now, you can figure most people would be thrilled at the idea that Isaiah Bradley certainly got the job done and saved the day, if you will. The U.S. government, not so much. Pissed off at him, upset at what he certainly did, locked him away. I think in the comic books it was 17 years, but Isaiah Bradley in this episode talks about the idea that it was 30 years for him, where they continue to do experiments on him. The comic books even said like sterilize him as well. Also kind of refusing to give him sort of not additional serums, but stuff to kind of counteract the side effects of the super serum. And they kind of decided not to give him those at all. So he wound up having like memory issues and mental issues as he wound up sort of getting older and things like that. So the U.S. government did not take care of Isaiah Bradley, despite the fact of him being a hero here, right? Using him to go on missions and things like that, using him to do all the dirty work, but none of the glory for his actions. And so first and foremost, I got to thank Kevin Feige for even bringing this story to mainstream television here, because I don't know if many people know the story of Isaiah Bradley at all, but this was one of the covers. I think this was by Joe Quesada. I always pronounce his name wrong. Fantastic artist in here, but he did a fantastic job in illustrating Isaiah Bradley in here also. But I will say this: I can't remember exactly who the artist is for the actual miniseries, but again, it's called Truth, Red, White, and Black. If you want to go ahead and digitally download it, I would recommend Comixology.com. Go ahead and just read his miniseries in that particular story. It hits very close to home, certainly. But I love the fact that Kevin Feige decided to bring Isaiah Bradley into the MCU and have that lore sort of stick. You know what I mean? It's great to have it in the comic books and things like that, but when you have more eyes on it, when you know millions of people are certainly watching, so go ahead and put Isaiah Bradley's story in there. I thought was just absolutely brilliant, and really just kind of hits home. So the showrunner, fantastic job in here. I'm so glad that they wind up showcasing him, and I just think also it's super impactful for somebody like a Sam Wilson who might have thought to himself the idea of, can there be a Black Captain America, right? How would people perceive you if you were African American as Captain America? And you've got a perfect example of that here in Isaiah Bradley from back in the 40s. So the idea and the mindset for Sam now is, okay, there has been president before. There has been somebody that has had this mantle. Granted, they were treated poorly. That's probably certainly a fear of Sam's, but also the idea of, hey, you know, somebody has done this before. Maybe I can go ahead and continue to be a trailblazer and do that type of thing and really be sort of that significant role, if you will, in society. And so I love the addition of the Isaiah Bradley in here because it just screams a Sam Wilson sort of situation that he's in right now. And I think it's probably going to help open up his eyes. So I'm thrilled that Bucky wind up taking him here, right? One of the only few other people that do have that super soldier serum inside of them. And very tragic story. You can see why Isaiah was certainly acting the way that he was, really wanting nothing to do with Bucky or the U.S. government for that matter, because you see how they've left him, right? A hero in his time by taking out the Nazis and saving really the U.S. from having to deal with Germany or the Nazis having super serum soldiers themselves. So yeah, he definitely went a long way. And shout out also goes out to the actor that performed him, Carl Lumbly, fantastic actor. I recently recall him from the Supergirl series that I also review, as he played, in fact, John Jones's father, another Martian himself. So Carl Lumbly, to see him in here, somebody who's already just a fantastic actor. I mean, goodness, his filmography just goes on for years and pages. I mean, this guy is as experienced as they come. To be able to get somebody like Carl to represent Isaiah Bradley, I thought was very perfect and very fitting. So thank you, Kevin Feige and the showrunner, for again bringing Isaiah Bradley to the big screen, or to the small screen, if you will. And I will say this also does have ramifications for the potential future of what we have in the MCU. And what I mean by that is the idea of Young Avengers. If you guys are familiar with Young Avengers, one the team leader in there, Patriot, is actually Isaiah Bradley's grandson, if I'm not mistaken. He is in fact his grandson, and I believe his name was, I'm thinking, don't tell me. Damn it, I lost it. I lost it. I had it on the tip of my tongue. I cannot remember his name. Hold on one second, because now it's just gonna bite me in the ass and just drive me crazy. His grandson's name. Let's see here. Is it Eli? Yeah, Eli. Elijah Bradley. That's what it was. Elijah Bradley. Sorry, I had to go ahead and pick that up because that was just going to drive me crazy the rest of the day, if not. But yes. Yes, he is in fact the grandson. Elijah Bradley is the grandson of Isaiah Bradley, who does go on to become the Patriot in the Young Avengers. Now, I don't know if that was him actually maybe opening the door at the household to let Bucky and Sam in. Maybe that particular actor would go on to become Patriot somewhere down the line if they do go the route of Young Avengers. The fact that they didn't even highlight him or even like really name him in this episode maybe thinks that maybe they'll find somebody else to be that character later on down the road, but this does have huge implications in regards to the future of the MCU. So great stuff when it comes to the character building for John Walker, getting us familiar with who that character is. Fantastic work in providing us with the Isaiah Bradley in the MCU. Very tragic story, but fantastic hero, and a great situation for Sam. And speaking of Sam, we got to talk about Sam and Bucky here. Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie just have the best chemistry in the world, don't they? I mean, just seeing them on screen together, they just truly get each other. I guess it's maybe years of working on screen, years of press tours, and just belittling Tom Holland wherever they go, sort of thing. I really love just seeing them sitting down for interviews. It's so fun to watch, and they really bring that chemistry to the screen here. I am really thrilled at the idea that Bucky does confront Sam. This is one of the things that we talked about in last week, was the idea that I was really hoping that when Bucky and Sam meet for the first time, that's the first thing he's got to get off his chest, right? The not understanding as to why Sam dropped the shield in the first place and gave it over to the U.S. government. So I'm glad that was like the first immediate thing here, right? The idea that Steve trusted you. You know, Steve knows what he's talking about. He wouldn't have given you that shield if he didn't think you were certainly ready for it, right? And so to kind of grill Sam a little bit, I kind of appreciate Bucky, you know, just being that best friend of Steve, you know, being that guy that gets Steve the most. It just felt fitting and inappropriate coming from somebody like Bucky. So I'm glad that they wind up having that little scuffle in the very beginning of the episode. But just seeing them work together is always hilarious. Great action sequence between them as well. I love the therapy session that they wind up having with the miracle situation that they found themselves in. I wish this guy would just stop talking. Yeah, that's the one thing I wish for you too. What a coincidence. I love seeing those two just on screen together. It just makes me laugh all the time. The idea of scooting their chairs super close to one another, and like, I wonder how much of that was actually scripted and how much is just them ad-libbing and just being goofy in themselves. You know what I mean? They just have great chemistry on screen. But I just thought it was really telling a moment for these characters, right? Like, you could still have that humor, but also have really revealing moments for these characters. For me, it was revealing for Bucky in the sense that he, you know, it makes him sort of question the idea of like why he, you know, Steve picked him, or maybe the idea of why Steve didn't pick him. You know what I mean? It makes me wonder where his mindset certainly is in regards to that. And I think that's going to be a really a fascinating journey for Bucky to have to kind of discover himself. I don't know if there's some animosity there. The idea that Steve gave it to Sam, and this is what Sam does with it, that maybe, you know, Steve maybe looked at Bucky in a certain way that, you know, that he wasn't ready per se. And now the idea of like, if Steve thinks that I'm not ready and he gives it to this guy and this guy gives up the shield, like, damn, what did he really think about me? Right. Like, and so I find that, really interesting. And maybe Sam, maybe Bucky just thinks to himself, like, I could have done a better job. And the fact that Steve maybe looked at him that way, maybe he's kind of resentful at the idea that Steve maybe looked at him that way. Maybe there's a part of Bucky that thinks I could have done a better job, or I wouldn't have ever given up the shield, sort of thing. You know what I mean? So I'm really interested. These therapy sessions. I don't know if, because in school I minored in psychology, like, I don't know if I just had a love for that type of stuff to really get into the brain of some of these characters. But I really love what the showrunner is doing in regards to, you know, while they are superheroes, we're seeing them in a very human level here. And I love it. Like, just the idea of them being in Baltimore and the cops show up, right? And it's not just one pair of cops, right? You got to get backup for what? Two people? Like, come on, man. Like, it's Baltimore, Maryland, but when you think about it at the end of the day, but still, it's something that happens on a regular basis. And so I just the little things like that. Like, don't you know who this guy is? Like, I love just the little things like that, and really seeing the humanity of these characters kind of brought to the small screen here. So I thought they did marvelous. I thought they did a fantastic job this week once again, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see here if I have any quick honorable mentions. Real quick, I also love the idea of how they continue to express just how much much the world is in chaos right now, that the world is just kind of still in shambles, right? They talk about the idea of like people having to reactivate their citizenship, get new social security numbers, healthcare. Half the population has certainly come back. They even have a new council called the Global Repatriation. Yeah, Global Repatriation. Global Repatriation Council that's in charge of doing all of that, kind of taking care of those kind of displaced sort of by the blip. I mean, can you imagine that? For 5 years, your whole world changes, right? Government has to change drastically. You have to start sort of accommodating the people that are sort of left behind. You know what I mean? So your supplies are probably a little bit lower than normal, right? And then all of a sudden, these people just come busting back into the world that you've created over the past 5 years, and now it's like it's mayhem. Just going back to the concept and idea of what happened with Sam in the bank, right? You're gone for 5 years. You probably got no credits. You probably got to sign up. There's probably brand new qualifications and stuff, for people that have come back to the blip. I'm sure there's a ton of fraud certainly going on in the world right now too, right? So it's really chaos. It's really chaos. And so I love the fact that they are really highlighting that and really showcasing why like a group like the Flag Smashers maybe are kind of popular with some people. You know what I mean? That's some people probably have been really their lives just thrown asunder, if you will, because of the fact that all these people have certainly come back, and maybe not everybody's thrilled that everybody has certainly come back, right? I mean, it's hard to imagine, but I'm pretty sure that there are some people out there. I mean, clearly the idea of the Flag Smashers is a representation of that, and they continue to go into hiding in here. But it does seem as though there's a little bit of a Robin Hood element, right? The idea that they're stealing from the rich, giving to the poor. This time, I think it was vaccines. Don't quite know exactly what their full purpose is as of yet, but it also seems as though they've got somebody after them. So it doesn't necessarily seem as though Baron Zemo is the main villain of this, unless Zemo is behind the scenes pulling the strings. It wouldn't surprise me if Zemo really is still the main villain, despite the fact that we see Sam and Bucky having to go ahead and get the help of Zemo in here, who winds up popping up at the very end. So it's great to certainly see him back. But it does seem as though the Flag Smashers also have somebody on their tail that's either looking for them or hunting them down. So I am fascinated to see who that particular person is, who they work for, and is Zemo really trying to help our friends here, or will he certainly help them, or is he the one pulling the strings? So I will be very fascinated to see how that worked out. But let's see here. Other than that, that the big three. I love the fact that that Sam brings up the idea of the big three: androids, aliens, and wizards. The big three that we find the Avengers always seemingly fighting against. But now maybe you've got to put some super soldiers on that list also. Let's see here. Other than that, guys, I was really impressed with this episode, man. John Walker again, really just the idea of him sort of understanding the position, the weight that's going to be put on him. I love the idea that he didn't just necessarily go into this with the mindset of, I'm going to do a great job, right? He understands the shoes that he has to fill and doesn't think that he's even capable, but he's certainly going to do his best, right? And I'm going to be fascinated to see his transformation, because I feel like I see a transformation already in this episode. Again, clean shaven to that 5 o'clock shadow by the end of the episode, man. Feeling a little bit more confident with that outfit on. Like, hey, man, don't you ever take that outfit off, bro? Like, come on, man. But we'll see what happens with him. But yeah, guys. Fantastic stuff. Great world building, great character building in here. And I love the lore here with Isaiah Bradley, just knocking it out of the park with bringing in the story of Black Captain America. I think it was very fitting, and I do want to see the impact that it's going to have on somebody like a Sam Wilson, certainly going forward, ladies and gentlemen. But again, if you haven't checked out, or if you're very unfamiliar with who Isaiah Bradley is, again, go ahead and check it out on Comixology.com. You can go ahead and digitally download the comic if you want to. It's called Truth, Red, White, and Black. back. It's a small mini series you guys can go ahead and check out if you want to just really get the idea of his mini series and his story for yourself outside of my explanation for it earlier. But other than that, guys, I think that's going to go ahead and do it for us here. So thank you very much for certainly joining us for another episode of APlus Hero Reports every Friday, as always, with these Falcon and Winter Soldier reviews for you guys. So let me know what you guys thought about this particular episode. These are just my A+ opinions, but at the end of the day, I want to know yours. So let your thoughts be known in the live chat or the comment section box below after this particular video airs. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, that'll be it for us. We'll certainly see you back here this Sunday live at noon Central Time for A+ Hero Report. But until then, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and as always, keep it A+. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.